Penguin Random House Audio presents Flex Your Feelings, Train Your Brain to Develop the 7 Traits of Emotional Fitness. This is the author, Dr. Emily Anhalt. Note to listeners, this audiobook includes a downloadable PDF which contains the exercises, prompts, and resources from the book. For the feelers who are learning to think differently, and the thinkers who are learning to feel more. Disclosure. The relationship between a therapist and their client is unique and privileged, and any information my clients disclose during their sessions is confidential and protected by a strict code of ethics and the law. The client stories in this book are either those for which I have received explicit permission from the client being described to include their anecdote, or they are anecdotes based on my clinical work as a mental health professional that have been cloaked or combined in a way to make them completely anonymized. Beyond this, any similarities or resemblances to people living or dead are purely coincidental. The information in this book is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any mental health condition and is not a substitute for medical or mental health treatment. Please discuss any mental health concerns with your doctor or a licensed mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis and are worried about your safety, don't hesitate to go to the nearest emergency room or dial 988 to reach the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Part 1. Emotional fitness is not optional. Chapter 1. Why are high-performing people burning out? Just a month into 2024, beloved Sesame Street Muppet Elmo innocently posted on the social media site X. Elmo is just checking in. How is everyone doing? The response to this tweet was staggering. More than 200 million likes and 20,000 responses later, the online world had spoken. Elmo, I'm gonna be real, I am at my fucking limit, one user wrote, and another confessed, not gonna lie, I'm tired, Elmo. A lot's going on, Little Red. In message after message, it was evident that the massive online trauma dump touched on something that we as a society brush under the proverbial rug. We all have issues. Emotional struggles are just part of being alive, but there is a stigma around prioritizing mental health, even as our awareness of its importance grows. Often, society frames us as either mentally healthy or mentally ill, a false dichotomy that ignores the vast majority of the population. Mental health is a spectrum that we are all on, and in fact, most of us are in multiple places on that spectrum at any given time. We might have healthy relationships at work, but not be our best selves in romantic relationships. We might feel mostly content with our lives, but on some level know that we're not living out our purpose. Which means, ultimately, that we all have more work to do. Often, we just suck it up, hoping that things will get better in time. We minimize our struggles or stuff down what we feel. If someone notices that we seem off, we deflect or say, we're fine, it's really nothing. But deep down, we know it's never really nothing. To truly achieve your goals and ambitions in life, strong and supportive relationships, a thriving career or business, peak physical and mental health, you need to stand on solid emotional footing. But if mental health is so important, why do we give it so little attention? I'm a clinical psychologist and therapist working in Silicon Valley. I work with some of the most high-powered, hard-charging, accomplished people in the world. These are people who can identify a massive work problem, devise a strategy, and deliver results. They've worked hard to achieve their success. But it doesn't mean they're content with their lives. It doesn't mean they don't struggle. The truth is, life is often uncomfortable, especially when you're aiming high. Unfortunately, our instinctive reaction to discomfort is usually to turn away. Give in to that impulse consistently, however, and you'll see a gap widen between where you are and where you want to be in life. It is usually when people realize that the gap has widened so much that they are at risk of falling down that hole that they show up in my office. But here lies the dilemma. If you wait to work on your mental health until the wheels start falling off your emotional life, if you don't pay attention to what's going on inside your head until it really starts affecting your body, all that stress, anger, and low self-esteem will wreak havoc on your relationships, your work, and your overall satisfaction in life. Unfortunately, many people don't realize that something needs to shift until it feels too late to change things. This way of thinking about mental health is entirely backward. It's like waiting until you're diagnosed with early signs of heart disease to start doing cardio. Instead, I encourage my clients to rethink mental health by addressing it more the way we now know we should be thinking about physical health, proactively. I realized that what people really need in order to keep their emotional life in shape is a proactive regimen for mental and emotional health, so that when they do hit the inevitable obstacles in life, they're able to move through them with strength, flexibility, and confidence, rather than stumbling under pressure. Can we actually train our body for mental health, just as we do for physical health? The answer is yes. You can't succeed on smarts alone. While I was in grad school for clinical psychology, I realized that the information I was learning was being gatekept within my campus and my textbooks. At the time, there were no emotional intelligence classes in high school or college. People weren't flocking to social media to talk about healthy communication or setting boundaries or anyone's growth mindset. Meditation was still fringe, and the idea of prioritizing mental health was definitely not normalized. These concepts are more mainstream today, but back then, if you weren't getting a degree in psychology, there was very little information on how to navigate relationships in a psychologically minded way. People were supposed to possess fully developed emotional coping skills, yet they were discouraged from seeking support in developing those skills, or even admitting to having trouble with them. This was especially true in the context of work, as I observed firsthand with my roommate at the time, Monica. Monica was struggling. The small fish startup she was working for had just been acquired by a big fish company, and she was thrust suddenly into a massive corporate machine. From the outside, the company was well-run and highly profitable. It attracted top-tier performers, the hungry and smart, the motivated and the hardworking. The employees possessed the right traits typically considered important for success. In other words, they had all the hard skills to make it. But Monica would come home from work night after night to unload about what an absolute nightmare the place was, and I could tell she was overwhelmed and burned out. Over time, and a lot of takeout, we figured out the company had made several unforced but common errors. There was ineffective communication between departments, leadership seemed to be leaking their emotional issues all over the place, and there was a severe lack of empathy for employees inside and outside of work. It all came down to overlooking or undervaluing important soft skills, a term that wildly undercuts how significant and difficult these skills are. Everyone had the business acumen and product intelligence to drive sales and profits, but not everyone had the emotional intelligence to make the workplace a positive and collaborative environment. And leadership didn't seem interested in doing much about it, even as attrition skyrocketed and growth sputtered. Everyone blamed the company itself, but I saw the trees through the forest. To have a healthy organization, every individual needs to feel supported to show up as a healthy version of themselves. The company was failing because the people who made it up were struggling, even though they were intelligent, creative, the best of the best. They couldn't succeed on smarts or talent alone. And neither could the business. It's true in tech, and it's true in all industries and walks of life. We bring our emotional selves to work every single day, whether we like it or not. So why does our society so often privilege hard skills over interpersonal intelligence? One big problem stemmed from the stigmas and misconceptions about emotions and mental health overall. At the time, therapy was a 4-letter word, and people were discouraged from even mentioning their mental health unless they were in the throes of a crisis. And then they were judged for having a crisis at all. As I supported Monica in navigating her frustrations with work, I started to wonder, what if people didn't wait so long to tackle their long-suffering inner demons and seek help? Could mental health be a more proactive practice? What if we didn't wait until things were falling apart to work on our mental and emotional health? Which led me to the next question. What if we treated emotional health the way we treat physical fitness? Could we shift our mindset about mental health care to look more like going to the gym and less like going to the doctor? And what would this look like in the workplace, where we spend about 1/3 of our lives? There's no quick fix. The importance of proactive physical fitness is both ancient and relatively new. Our ancestors had physical exercise built right into their lives as they had to hunt for food.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?